before I show you the soil secret that changed everything for me, I need to share something with you. Because it connects directly to what you're about to learn. Right now, the Amish Kitchen Secrets Complete Bundle is available for just $34. 2 books, 100 real recipes, 45 traditional food preservation methods that Amish families have been using for 300 years. Before grocery stores existed, before supply chains, before any of this modern fragility we live inside today. These are not recipes that need 15 specialty ingredients and a food processor. These are the meals that fed families through hard winters, through drought, through economic collapse. Real food, made with simple hands and simple tools. The link is right below this video. Grab it now. Because what I'm about to teach you about soil is the growing side of that same equation. The Amish knew both halves. Today I'm giving you the second half, for free. Now, let's talk about the ground beneath your feet. They told you to dig. Every spring, every single year. Break out the tiller, rent the machine. Grind up the earth, turn it over, flip it all upside down, and then, and only then, were you allowed to plant. You followed the rules, your back paid for it in full, and your garden still failed. Here is the truth they have spent 60 years hiding from you. Tilling the soil is one of the most destructive things a human being can do to the earth. Every pass of that machine is a biological massacre. Billions of living organisms shredded. Fungal networks that took years to form snapped apart in seconds. The invisible architecture of a living ecosystem reduced to dust. Modern agriculture told you this was progress. It was sabotage. The farmers of the 1800s knew something your grandfather forgot and your father never learned. Doing the work you think you are doing when you fertilize, when you water, when you till, they let the soil do its job. It is the exhaustion of doing the same thing every year and watching it produce the same disappointing results. The tomatoes that never really thrive, the beans that come in for 2 weeks and then stop. The soil that looks dark and rich in March but by July feels like packed concrete. And below and between all of them, the most sophisticated communication and transportation network in the natural world. The mycelium. These thread-like white filaments extend from the roots of your plants and spread outward through the soil in every direction, sometimes for dozens of feet. The 1800s farmer did not do this, not because he was smarter than you, because he could not afford to. He had no machine. He had a broad fork, a hoe, and his own 2 hands. And he learned, through seasons of careful observation, that the ground rewarded gentleness far more than force. He learned to disturb only what needed disturbing. He learned to feed the soil, not the plant. And his garden fed his family through things that would empty our grocery store shelves in 72 hours. Before it was called no-dig gardening, before it had a name at all, it was simply called farming. In the mid-1800s, across the American Midwest, across the British countryside, across the farming villages of France and the Rhine Valley, small-scale food producers maintained kitchen gardens that fed entire families through every season. These were not people who went to the store for vegetables in November. The store did not have vegetables in November. They grew, they preserved, and they planned. And underneath all of it was soil they understood the way a craftsman understands his tools. They layered organic matter on top of organic matter. Autumn leaves over spent vegetable beds. Straw over winter root crops. Kitchen compost worked into the surface. Not dug in, not turned. This is not a theory. This is a documented, practiced, replicated method that has been producing extraordinary yields for a very long time. The modern no-dig movement associated with names like Charles Dowding is simply the rediscovery and documentation of what subsistence farmers practiced as common sense for centuries. But here is the catch. The agricultural industry cannot sell you anything if you do not till. They cannot sell you a tiller rental. They cannot sell you synthetic fertilizer to replace the nutrients you ground up. They cannot sell you fungicides to treat the root diseases that thrive in disturbed, compacted, biologically depleted soil. A no-dig garden that saves its own seeds and composts its own waste costs almost nothing to maintain after the first year. That is not a business model they can monetize. So they never told you, walk away from it. If you have an established bed that you have been tilling for years, this is the last year. If you are starting a new bed, you will never till it once. Step 2. Kill what is there without disturbing the soil. If you are establishing a new bed over grass or weeds, lay cardboard directly on top of the surface. Overlap the edges by at least 6 inches. Water it thoroughly. This is called the lasagna method, the sheet mulch method, or simply what the practical farmer has always done with cardboard. Do not remove the dead material. Do not dig it up. Leave it to decompose where it stands. It feeds the soil as it disappears. Weeds will germinate on the surface. and they are easy to remove at that stage because they are rooted in soft compost, not in packed earth. Pull them gently. The roots come out whole. You do not need a hoe. Step 5. Mulch everything. After planting, cover every inch of exposed compost surface with 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch. Straw is excellent. Shredded leaves are excellent. Wood chip mulch from an arborist is excellent and often free if you call ahead and ask. The mulch does 4 things simultaneously. It retains moisture, reducing your watering needs by up to 60%. It suppresses weed germination by blocking light. It slowly breaks down and feeds the compost layer beneath it, and it regulates soil temperature, keeping roots cool in summer heat and insulated against early frosts. They don't want you to know this. A mulched, no-dig bed managed well requires almost no purchased inputs after the first year. The system becomes self-sustaining, which is exactly what the farmer of the 1800s intended. Step 6. Feed the soil surface, not the plant. Once per season, in early spring before planting and optionally again in midsummer, add 1 inch of fresh compost on top of your mulch layer. Pull the mulch back, add the compost, then replace the mulch over it. The worms will do the rest. Do not use synthetic fertilizers. Here is why. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizers, when applied to soil, create a chemical environment that actually inhibits the activity of mycorrhizal fungi. You are paying to destroy the very delivery system that makes expensive fertilizer unnecessary. It is circular self-sabotage, and it is extraordinarily profitable for the companies selling both the fertilizer and the fungicide. You then need to treat the root problems that follow. Feed the soil with compost. Let the soil feed your plants. That is the entire system. Now we arrive at what I consider the most powerful piece of this entire conversation. Seeds. Not purchased seeds. Not the seeds in the rack at the hardware store. Not the hybrid varieties engineered to produce exactly 1 generation and stop. Your seeds. Saved from your own plants. Cleaned in your own kitchen. Stored in your own jars. And sown back into your own ground the following spring. Larger fruit. Uniform color. Thicker skin for machine harvesting. Longer shelf life for cross-country shipping. Hybrid seeds are remarkable in the first generation. They are also completely useless for saving. When you save seed from a hybrid plant and sow it the following year, the offspring do not resemble the parent. They revert, some to one parent line, some to another, some to something in between. The uniformity is gone. The commercially desirable traits are gone. What you are left with is genetic chaos. This was not an accident. A seed that cannot be saved must be purchased again, every single year, by every single grower, in every single country. It is the most elegant recurring revenue model in the history of agriculture. Rule 2. Save from the best individuals. This is selection pressure, the same force that drives natural evolution. Do not save seed from the first tomato that ripens. Do not save from a plant that struggled with disease or produced poorly. Mark your most vigorous plants early in the season. The largest, healthiest, most productive individual in your bed is the one whose genetics you want to propagate. Tie a piece of yarn around its stem. Remember it. At harvest, those are the fruits you save seed from. Over just 3 or 4 generations of selection, you will have a variety that is measurably better in your specific garden than the original stock you started with. This is how traditional farmers built the extraordinary vegetable varieties that the seed industry then patented, commercially produced, and sold back to the public. Rule 3. Let seeds fully mature before saving. For most vegetables, the seed is not mature when the fruit is at its eating peak. A tomato is best for eating when it is fully ripe. For seed saving, you want overripe, left on the vine an additional 2 to 3 weeks past peak ripeness, to the point where you would not want to eat it fresh. The seed inside has completed its development and has reached maximum germination potential. For dry seeded crops, beans, peas, corn, leave the pods on the plant until they are completely dry and papery and beginning to split. If frost threatens before this happens, pull the entire plant and hang it upside down in a warm, dry place indoors. The seeds will continue to mature. Rule 5. Dry completely before storage. This is non-negotiable. Any moisture in stored seeds leads to mold. Mold leads to dead seeds. Dead seeds lead to a spring planting that produces nothing. The seed should feel completely hard. It should snap when bent rather than bend. If it bends, it is not dry enough. The quick test. Place a seed between your fingernails and press. A fully dry seed will not deform. A seed with residual moisture will flatten slightly. Do not store until this test passes. Let me talk about money for a moment, because this is real. Year 1 of a no-dig garden requires investment. Good compost, or the time and materials to make it. Cardboard for sheet mulching, which you can often source free from appliance stores and moving companies. Mulch, which is free if you call a local arborist and ask to be on their drop list. Open pollinated seeds for your first season, which will cost you $20 to $40 total. In year 1, your investment returns a harvest and a first season of seed saving. In year 2, you plant seeds you saved for free. Your soil is already measurably more alive than it was 12 months ago. Your compost system is running. Your mulch is partially broken down and feeding the bed from above. Your time investment is half what it was, because the system is starting to manage itself. In year 3, the numbers become extraordinary. Your seed cost is 0. Your fertilizer cost is 0. Your soil amendment cost is the time it takes to maintain a compost pile from kitchen and garden waste. The mycorrhizal networks in your bed are fully established. Your plants will show it in ways that are visually unmistakable. Deeper color. Faster establishment after transplanting. Dramatically better drought resistance because those fungal networks are delivering water from a radius your roots alone could never reach. By year 3, you are spending 2 to 3 hours per week maintaining a garden that is actively reducing your grocery bills by hundreds of dollars per season. And building in preservation skills, you are extending that impact into the winter months as well. This is the compound effect. Not of money in a market account. Of biological intelligence built up in living soil. Of seeds selected for your conditions, of a family that understands at a practical level how food actually comes from the ground. Seed saving rotation, the annual calendar. Let me give you a practical framework for integrating seed saving into your gardening calendar, because it does not happen automatically. It requires a rhythm. January and February. Review your seed inventory. Test germination rates on any stored seed older than 3 years by placing 10 seeds between damp paper towels in a warm location for the appropriate germination period. If fewer than 7 of 10 germinate, plan to refresh that variety this season. March. Order any open pollinated varieties you do not have saved. This is your last purchase. Everything you start from now should eventually cycle back into your own collection. April through June. As plants establish, begin tagging your seed-saving candidates early. Tie yarn or a plant marker to the individuals you will save from. The earlier you identify them, the less chance of accidentally harvesting the fruit you needed for seed. July. For fast-maturing crops, peas, early beans, early lettuce, begin your first seed harvest. Process and dry promptly. Label immediately. A seed without a label is a mystery, and mysteries in a seed collection are a problem. The knowledge that disappears. I want to say something that I mean seriously. The practical knowledge of how to grow food, save seeds, and preserve harvests is disappearing from our culture at an accelerating rate. It is not taught in schools. It is not demonstrated on television. It is not passed down in most families, because most families lost the thread 1 or 2 generations ago, when the grocery store made it seem unnecessary. It is not unnecessary. It is the oldest and most essential set of skills a human family can possess. And once it is gone from a culture, once the grandmothers who knew how to ferment and the grandfathers who saved tomato seeds in paper envelopes in the top drawer of the barn are gone, it does not come back quickly. You learning this is not just for you. When you save a tomato variety for 5 consecutive seasons and hand your neighbor a jar of seeds in spring, you are doing something that matters beyond your garden fence. You are keeping a thread alive that connects to every farming community that has ever sustained itself through hard times. This is not romantic hyperbole. This is food security policy at the household level. The families that know how to do this will be fine. They have always been fine. They will continue to be fine, regardless of what happens to supply chains, to grocery prices, to the economy, to any of the external forces that make modern food dependence feel increasingly fragile. They don't want you to know this. The system profits from your dependence, and every seed you save is a small, quiet act of refusal. August. Peak seed saving season. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, basil. Process wet-seeded crops through fermentation. Shell and dry seeded crops. Keep a dedicated drying area, a spare room, a covered porch, anywhere with good air circulation and consistent warmth. September and October, final seed harvests. Squash and cucumber seeds. Late season bean varieties. Winter squash seeds are saved after the fruits have been stored for at least 6 weeks. The seeds continue to mature inside the stored fruit. Do not rush this. November, inventory, test, and store all seeds. Clean and dry every jar. Add fresh silica gel packets. Organize by crop family. Record what you have, what performed well, and what you want to grow differently next season. December. Rest. The seeds are safe. The soil is resting under its mulch. The system is doing its quiet work underground. You have done your part. Closing. Your next step. You have everything you need to begin. Stop digging. The soil beneath your feet is not a problem to solve. It is a system waiting to be protected. Layer your compost. Spread your mulch. Let the biology do the work it has been doing since before human agriculture existed. Plant open pollinated varieties this season. Mark your best individuals early. Save your seeds. Dry them completely. Store them cool and dark and labeled. Next spring, you will plant seeds that cost you nothing. The spring after that, the soil will be measurably richer than it is today, without you having done anything to it except protect it. By the third year, you will understand something in your body that you cannot fully grasp from reading about it. What it feels like to have a functioning food system of your own. One that does not depend on a truck arriving on time. One that does not depend on a price staying within your budget. One that your children can watch and learn and eventually continue. Before you go, grab the Amish Kitchen Secrets bundle if you have not already. The link is in the description. 100 recipes, 45 preservation methods, $34. The complete kitchen and pantry companion to everything you just learned about the soil. And stay close, because the next video is coming. And it is going to show you how to fertilize your entire garden for the rest of your life at zero cost, using materials you are probably throwing away right now. It is the single most immediately actionable piece of information in this entire series. Do not miss it.